Hello, everyone. Welcome to FFC&Me, a brand new series of our show on the Ful-on channel. We're really excited to bring the show back this year. We were a bit upset we only managed to get one in last season before we sort of try to push on to get the rest of the channel up to date. As you know, we're still a relatively new channel. We're trying to push and give you guys as much content as we can. We've got some new shows coming out this year, as long as our usual review and preview shows that we do. FFC&Me. Hopefully, we'll have at least 6 or 7 of these interviews coming out throughout the season with ex-players and some really important Fulham fans. I hope you guys enjoy those. This starting off this season, we have a great interview with Kit Simons, ex-Fulham player, ex-manager. It's a great interview with Kit. You know, we hear a good story about him joining the club, what it was like managing the club, and sort of the ups and downs of Fulham. We hear quite a lot of with Kit, and it was absolutely fantastic to interview with him. Just a heads up on this one, I'm sort of cut out a bit a couple of times video-wise in the video chat. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, I'm not actually recording at my house, which has really good internet, and the house we're recording at has really rubbish internet. So I cut out a few times, but I don't think it's that noticeable, and it definitely doesn't sort of ruin the interview with Kit. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview. Come and give FFC&Me and the Full-on channel a follow if you haven't done so already. The more people that we get watching these and sharing these, the more I can get done. So hopefully we can get some really good interviews in. Other than that, enjoy this, the first episode of the new series of FFC&Me. I'm delighted to be joined by ex-Fulham player, ex-Fulham manager, many other jobs you've done for the club. It's Kit Simons. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. All good. Nice to speak to you.
It's a pleasure to have you on. You're really in the wheelhouse of, at that moment where I was at the age where I really fell in love with football and Fulham. Your time at Fulham is really synonymous with that time frame. So I'm actually really excited to have you on to chat Fulham. Um, let's get started. Really, obviously, we'll start from when you first came to Fulham. Do you remember how the sort of the move came around? What was your feeling about sort of coming
Yeah,
from
yeah, I
Fulham, that
do.
sleepy city?
Yeah, I was obviously at Man City, and I've been there for like 3 seasons, and it'd been a tough time to be honest. We ended up having two. I joined in the Premier League, got relegated last day of the season, the first season, and then the third season we got relegated again. Last day of the season, we beat Stoke 5-2, I think, but ended up getting relegated still. So it was quite a tough time. I've been offered a new contract, and then it got withdrawn. There's a lot going on at the club. I've been offered a contract in the Championship, like quite locally from where I was living, and I'd spoken to the club, and I was pretty much decided I was going to go there. And then Cookie phoned me up for a chat. Obviously, I knew Chris through Wales. He phoned me up and said, "Listen, I've got Kevin Keegan on the line as well. He wants to have a word with you." And Kevin just said basically, "Listen, come down and speak to us. I know you've spoken to this other club. They were, like I say, a league higher. They're in the Championship." But he said, "Just give us the courtesy of coming down and talking to us before you actually go and sign for them." So I did. I went down, but I was still pretty sure I was going to sign for someone else. But like I say, he's very persuasive, Kevin. And I met him at the cottage, and it just felt really good, you know. So bottom line, I ended up signing for a team in a lower division for less money, and I thought I'd done well. You know, it just seemed the right thing to do. He sold me this vision of like a 5-year plan. Fulham would be in the Premier League within 5 years, and I bought it. I fell for it, and I mean, you know, we ended up in the Premier League in 3 years, as happened. So he wasn't lying. And like I say, it just felt really good. The whole, and we didn't have our own training ground. We're training at Bank of England then as well, which is why he met me at the cottage. And he's laughing about it afterwards. He said, "I couldn't take the training ground because we haven't got one." I went, "Oh, fair enough." So, but it just, like I say, it just felt right. It was a good, Fulham was a club on the up then for sure, you know, under Kevin's sort of tenure and Al Fayed's, it was, you could see it was going in the right direction. It just felt right.
Yeah, as I say, like I really remember. I've been going to Fulham since I was literally a little baby. So I started going to Fulham in the early 90s. but I was 8 years old, I think, when you signed, and it was right at that time when I properly fell in love with Fulham, like properly hook, line, and sinker. That was it. And so I have really vivid memories, especially of you and Chris Coleman playing and stuff like that. And it was always good to sort of see that, love come about. Now, when we talk to people about Fulham and why the club gets into them and why they love it, most of the time it's because of sort of the relationship that people have, not just with like the colleagues and their players that they work with or the people at the club. It's also sort of relationship with the fans. Do you remember what it was like for you coming in terms of like the relationship and the feeling that you got from the fans towards you sort of coming in?
Yeah, well, we used to. I mean, it was obviously a very, very different time back then. But after games, we'd go over to Riverside and have a pint with the fans after the game. And bearing in mind at Fulham, these were the fans that had kept the club afloat a little while before. It was nearly going out of existence, and had sort of put their hands in their pockets to keep the club going. So these were, the that's what it's all about for me. And that it was so good. And we didn't think anything of it. It was just a normal, natural thing to do for us back then. We had a really, really good group. The spirit amongst the lads was fantastic. But we'd go and have a beer together as well. We liked each other's company, and so it was quite a natural thing to do after the game. We just wandered over, have a couple of pints with the fans, and go from there. Yeah, so it was always good. I mean, there was the odd occasion it didn't go so well. I remember we played Hartlepool in the cup, and they had a little Argentinian lad, and their players were winding him up. Morgs was kicking lumps out of him in the game, I think, and so their players told him it's tradition to go and have a fight in the bar afterwards. So all kicked off in the bar after Hartlepool. We played them in the cup, and so the fans got involved a bit there as well. But it soon got quietened down. But yeah, it was just really good times. I remember my first experience. I just signed. Literally, I think I signed, and the next day we went off to play Hamburg pre-season, and we beat Hamburg and had a night out. But well, Cookie, as captain, asked Kevin, I think, if the players could have a beer. So we were in a hotel in the middle of nowhere. So Kevin thought we'd go down the bar and have a beer. But as soon as he said, "Yeah, you can have a beer," that was taxis into Hamburg. So and everyone came out, the whole squad, and it was brilliant. So we were walking around Hamburg in our Fulham tracksuits, bumping into all the supporters and all that, and it was just a real laugh. It was great fun and just brilliant times. And but like you say, it was then a time that you could mix with the fans, and no one thought anything of it. It was just what we did.
When you think about that squad that you joined that year, obviously, there was this real sort of there was a real insurgence of some really top quality players. You think, we keep mentioning, talk about Cookie. He'd step down big steps to come to Fulham. He was a big signing for Fulham when he joined. We got you when you, obviously, I know difficult time at City, but you technically were a Premier League player when you signed for Fulham when you come down. There were some really big names that had joined the club, and obviously there's no doubt in my mind that's mainly because of having Kevin Keegan as manager and his influence to get people in. And we saw some really big names play for us that season. What was it like, at the club at the time? Because I imagine it would have been quite odd because it was a big transitional time at the club where we were starting to take ourselves a bit more seriously than we maybe had done before. My memory of Fulham beforehand was that, even from a fan's point of view, we didn't really take ourselves seriously. We were always sort of the butt of our own joke. And, those of us who still do that now, I think that's sort of a pass on thing from remembering it. But, what was it like, the mentality sort of as a player at the time coming in?
Yeah, well,
Because I
that's
can
all.
imagine
That's
it could have
all
been
part,
quite a little bit of
part of being
conflict.
part of being Fulhamish, I think, isn't it? You still take the Mickey out.
Hmm.
That's part of the fabric of the club, and that's what makes it so good as well. And I hope that like never goes away. Do you know what I mean? Because I think that's important. That's what makes all clubs are different. All clubs are special, and that's part of what makes Fulham so special. I think so. I certainly hope that that kind of humour or whatever, the way the Fulham fans look at their own club, that never changes because it's brilliant. It always makes me chuckle. Like it's really good. But yeah, we did. We had some good players there. There was some good players already there. I mean, you got to remember it was like after a promotion with Mickey Adams, so there were some good boys there as well. still your Matty Lawrence and obviously Morgs had went all the way through, and players like that. So, but there was an influx, a big influx of players, and some quality players. You know, obviously Pesh and people like that as well. Some very good signings were being made, and so I think
When you
everyone then could see. Sorry, go on.
no, you carry on. You carry.
I say I think we could see as players that this was getting serious, you know, and going in the right direction, and because it wasn't. I don't know if you remember that season. It wasn't all like sort of silky football. I mean, we had Pesh and then Jeff and people scoring goals for fun, but we had a lot of real scrappy 1-0 away wins and things like that. We could like mix it as well. We had a real strength about us, and you know, Cookie and Morgs and people like that who could put their foot in when needed to be. Obviously, ruthless at left back. He didn't mind a tackle, did he? So we had players like that as well. So we could win games when it got a bit tense and a bit scrappy. But then we had some real genuine quality as well within that. So we had it was a really good combination, and then chuck in a brilliant sort of team spirit and a great environment, and you know you've got a recipe for success, and that's what happened. Obviously, that's that first season.
I think that when I remember that season, I remember an awful lot of big wins, naturally, because there were quite a few that season, but there were some, as you say, there were a lot of scrappy, fight them out, prove that we deserve to sort of get promotion because of the way that the club sort of dealt with the hard games, not just these games. I know often in football that's how it is. The champions, the people that win the league, aren't always the ones that play the most attractive football. It's about staying consistent and getting those wins in. What for you as a player, naturally, with that being the case, was there any sort of culture shock in terms of like playing lower down after you've been in the Premier League and sort of seeing the quality drop, or was it more just because because I know you've been a Portsmouth and you played at Portsmouth beforehand, and that was a like bit going upwards and stuff like that. What was that like for you personally?
Yeah, so it was the lowest level I'd ever played at, the third tier. Um, and it was yeah. So it was a bit different for sure, and it was very. I mean, the championship is physical, but League One can be even more so and a bit scrappier, like say at times as well. So, but like I said, we had the signings were really good. They weren't not just about getting good players, about getting good players to get you out of that league. And the signings that he made, I mean, someone like Jeff didn't mind mixing it. For example, Jeff Horsfield, obviously, and that's I spoke about people like Rufus who was there when I came in, and so we had people who could do that physical side of it, no problem at all. But then good players as well in their own right too. So we had that good balance. But it was like I say, it was the lowest level I'd played at. I was still playing internationally for Wales, so we'd be playing against uh, Christian Vieri and Del Piero one week, and then you're playing against Lincoln the next week or something. So it was like it was, yeah, but it was brilliant. It was a great time, and I'd had tough times at Man City. I'd had a couple of tough seasons, so I didn't turn up thinking, oh, I'm better than this or anything. Quite the opposite. I was just pleased to get the opportunity to sort of get playing again back to what I knew I could do. And Fulham and Kevin gave me that opportunity.
When you think about that sort of that the 98-99 season in particular, obviously, you get promoted, the squad's really, really good. There's that whole thing of Kevin leaving because he got the England job, fully deserved, he got the England job. He sort of was replaced by Paul Bracewell, who's another guy who's really popular amongst Fulham fans. When we think about that sort of time period, it was a really good season. Obviously, getting promoted is always massive. Being champions is always massive. Finishing the league on 101 points is huge. What for you going into that season, like when you think about that year, because if I remember some of the players that played in that team, you got like Philippe Albert was playing for Fulham at one point. Peter Beardsley was playing for Fulham. Like that's nuts. For me, growing up as a boy from like I lived in the council estate in South London, so when we used to play football and we used to play and everyone used to play like World Cups and you'd play everyone was being Arsenal players and Man United players. But me and my cousin who were being Fulham players, we had great joy of picking, some very big names who were playing for Fulham at the time and managed to put it out. Was that a bit mad? To think some of the quality of players that we'd had that season alone was just sort of, John Solarco was in that squad. That it's just crazy when you think about it, especially when you look at the league and who we're playing at. We should have won the league and we did rightfully, but it wasn't easy. And you guys played some amazing football. What was it like for you?
Yeah, it was just a brilliant time, and I mean the whole thing around the club. Like you say, there was some big name players coming in and playing. Like Philip Albert he played quite a lot for us. He was brilliant, a great guy coming in. But again, I think Kevin made sure he fitted into our changing room, and straight away he was accepted from the lads and was one of the boys straight away. Brilliant, real good character, great fella, and he just fitted straight in. And because the spirit was so good, and Kevin was very good like that. He sort of let the senior pros pretty much run the dressing room because he knew we had a strong nucleus of senior pros, and he sort of let us police it ourselves really, and we did it well. We had good standards, and it was just a good time, and there was all sorts happening at the club. I mean, Michael Jackson was turning up, Tony Curtis, Hugh Grant was always there. It was crazy times at the club really, but it wasn't. Sometimes it can get a bit of a circus when it's like that, but that was very much sort of secondary to what we were doing on the pitch. We enjoyed all that side of it. Don't get me wrong, and it was great fun, but we were a very focused group, and Kevin was very focused and made sure we stayed like that as well. And so the most
I think
important thing, all the other stuff going on and all the sort of glitz and glamour or whatever, that was very much secondary to getting our work done during the week in training and performing on the pitch on a Saturday.
I think for me, I vividly remember that time period of being when we used to go in Fulham home games and there being like 4,000 people there. There'd be next to nobody there. In fact, when the football was so bad at some points during that time period that, me and my cousins would be at the front of the Hammersmith end playing football, rather than watching what was going on. But obviously there was a real shift in those couple of years. Obviously, we remember, you know, some of the games that we played that in those seasons. The next year, obviously in 99, 2000, just things like playing Tottenham in the League Cup, beating Tottenham in the League Cup was one of the most mental things that I could sort of remember. If anyone had told me, 2 years beforehand that, you know, someone's going to come in big money, buy the club and start taking it seriously, and you're going to beat Tottenham in a League Cup. You're gonna go away, and I remember the heartache of losing at Leicester in the League Cup and stuff like that. Were there any moments for that as for you as a squad or as sort of players where maybe some of the guys have been at Fulham for a long time? Were there real like pinch me moments in terms of like we're here, we're taking ourselves seriously? Do we like?
I think,
Was there anything like that for you?
yeah, quite a few. And you spoke about like the cup games. I mean, probably the big statement one for me was probably Villa away in the FA Cup when they were top of the Premier League, and
Hmm.
and we went there and we expected to win. It sounds crazy. We're like third tier, and you're playing top of the Premier League on their own patch. And we turned up expecting to win. I remember being on the bus pulling into Villa Park, and the cameras like homed in and for I don't know, Football Focus or whatever it was, and like we're all laughing on the bus. It was something to do with I think Pesh had drunk about 6 espressos or something on the coach on the way to the game, and he was like bouncing off the walls literally, and so we're all like laughing at Pesh, and that's what that homed in as we're driving in, but that's how relaxed we were. It was like I don't know. It sounds crazy, but we did honestly expect to go and win, and then I think it was Morgs and Stevie Hayward scored, and he beat them 2-0 and deservedly so. We were the better team on the day. But then we a cup game. We beat Southampton a couple of times, played Southampton a couple of times in the Premier League side then in the cup and did well against
Yeah.
them. like, so we just, I mean, I remember we ended up losing to United, didn't we, at Old Trafford 1-0, but put up a good performance. And, to lose 1-0 at Old Trafford, when they were absolutely flying, is no disgrace at all. And it just showed how much belief we had in ourselves and and yeah, each other.
I think that when I think of obviously that time period, there were some amazing games. Going to Anfield and watching Fulham, little old Fulham play at Anfield was amazing. Losing the game, whatever. Paul Pescalino scoring probably is still my favourite ever Fulham goal. Um, and stuff like that. Beating Tottenham in the League Cup, but winning at Villa Park is still one of the greatest days of my childhood. Like it's a really odd one. And if I didn't love Simon Morgan beforehand, genuinely, like I loved him so much. It was just one of those things. We talk about sort of coming to the end of your time at Fulham. We get promoted again. We're looking really really good. I know that you obviously left and you went over to Palace and stuff like that. But what how as a footballer, as a person, what's that like when you leave a club? Not necessarily you didn't leave in bad terms. Obviously, like you still very much loved as a player at Fulham, but maybe the club had just sort of pushed on a bit, and it's for your career, obviously, that you're moving on. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so my like I say, it's quite sort of clear I wasn't really going to play that much or be in John Tigana's sort of mind to be in the starting 11. But I got on very well with him. He was a good guy, a good manager, Tigana, and but he liked me being around because he knew I was good for part of the group and for the spirit and all that sort of thing. So, but I needed to play. I was at a stage and an age where I wanted to play every week. So that was, and I just pushed my point. I said, listen, I came as a free transfer and I've helped with 2 promotions. Least you can do is let me go, type thing. So I had to badger him and become a bit of a nuisance for him to let me go because he wasn't going to play me, but he liked me being part of the group. And I was a squad player, and I would have played some games, but not enough for me. I wouldn't have been a regular, certainly. And yeah, so like I said, I mean, I left on great terms. I had no sort of falling out. I just wanted to go and play football. And obviously got that opportunity then to go to Palace.
Obviously, well, I've left out one major thing while talking between those two times. And that's obviously getting promoted to the Premier League, which again, the proper pinch me moment for a Fulham fan at that point because I'd only ever seen us play, third, fourth division. I was still sort of mental for us playing in the old Division One and doing as well as we were doing. That promotion season, even now, to me, is some of the best football I've ever seen Fulham play. Like week in, week out, the squad as a whole was just tremendous. It didn't matter who was playing, it didn't matter who came in for who. Obviously, we had a massive loss halfway through the season when Cookie had his accident, and if anything, that sort of galvanised the squad more than anything else. What was that season like? Because for me, it was when the football really switched on. It was when it became all about just how good is this football team? How good is this football club? It was a real joy to watch that season. What was it like for you to take part?
Yeah, it was brilliant, and it started right at the pre-season. As soon as Tigana came in, I remember we played at Brentford at Griffin Park, and we were crude. I think we were 2-3-0 up at half time, and we've been playing out of the back and just ripping them apart. So second half, they just pushed 4 on up against our back 4 to stop us playing out. So Mike Taylor in goal just started kicking it. Tigana was going mad on the sideline. We're like, what do you want us to do? They've pushed 4 on against us. We can't play out. And his big thing was you always find the next solution. You like playing long is your last resort. And find the next one, and the next one is there must be someone out wide who's free, or someone will be free. Find the solution. So he kept, and that's how he was. He kept setting us problems. We had to work things out for ourselves and find a solution. But it was all about playing football, play at all costs at all times. And he was like very much. He said, "Listen, if you don't do this way, you won't play. If it goes wrong, I'll take the blame." He was very much like that, and some of us. I mean, don't get me wrong, we were good players. I mean, I could play a bit. Obviously, Rufus, people like that, but he took our game to another level, and everyone. And then some of the signings that came in. I mean, John Collins was obviously a top player coming in, but the one for me, I mean, Louis Saha was just ridiculous. That season was the best I've ever seen anyone play over the course of a season. He was literally, I mean, he stayed fit. Being fit was Louis' big thing throughout his whole career, and he stayed fit that whole season and was just phenomenal. He he was strong and could hold the ball up. He was quick, could run over the top, great in the air. He could go right, he could go left. He had the lot, and he just absolutely terrorised the championship that year. We had a lot of good players who played really, really well, but he was unplayable. He was ridiculous how good he was that year.
I think that when we think of that season, we always think of the front three. We always think about Saha, Boa, and obviously and Barry Hells as the main sort of three that went through. But we forget that we had some real quality had sort of come into the squad that year. You think of Bjarne Goldbeck had come in and joined us from Chelsea. He was immense as a footballer. We had Karl-Heinz Riedler, who come on, that I don't think I can even explain how difficult it is for me to explain to people even little things like the preseason friendly against India and just how unserious but how good he was during that game. It's just some real big moments that season. I think that we
I
think
mean,
of that as
Steve Finnan
striking.
was just phenomenal. Finn as well. What a player he was, Steve Finnan for us. Absolutely incredible,
Stephen
Finn.
and Yeah, but I always think of the defensive unit a lot, right? Because when I played when I was a kid, I was a goalkeeper and a defender. So whenever I played, that's where I tend to play. So Mike Taylor for me is always going to be one of my favourite ever Fulham goalkeepers because he was just so good. And even little things like watching him go play for Northern Ireland, who were having a bit of a resurgence at the time. Little things. Was he on Noel's house party at one point during that season, like saving goals. It's just little things like that. But when you're a Fulham fan at the time, we didn't tend to get media coverage like that. We didn't tend to get positive coverage. For us, it was always like because people were taking the mick rather than how good it was. And I think it was when other people really started taking it seriously, sort of that year. And I think of that squad, and there was actually quite a big Welsh contingent in that squad at some point, especially in the defensive unit. There was quite a lot of sort of Welsh players there. Did that really help you guys in terms of staying sort of tight knit because you're with each other at the club and sometimes even the country as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it can help, but it's just get good lads. If we had everyone really was proper top lad in that squad, and we all just really enjoyed each other's company. It was really just a good time, like and it's get enough good people together, and good things are going to happen. It's as simple as that, and it's not rocket science, and it's all down to the recruitment really, and they recruited very, very well.
Let's move on. Obviously, talking about your playing career, come in and talk about the other times. Obviously, you've been at Fulham. You were working at Fulham for a little while before you stepped in as a sort of caretaker and then manager yourself. You came in at a really difficult time. The circus that the club was before you took over as manager. It was a really difficult time to have to come in and manage the club. What was that like for you? Because I know obviously you've been in management and assistant manager at places before that, but what was it like for you to come in and manage the club again and sort of be part of the setup?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been at the club quite a long time. I came in when Roy was manager, initially doing scouting for the European campaign for the Europa League run. So I came in then and did stuff, loads of scouting and some work in the academy. And so I've been there quite a few years, done the under-18s, which I absolutely loved managing the under-18s at Fulham, and then was doing the under-21s. And so it was difficult because I'd had a lot of association with the club, and I really felt the club. And to see it, and I knew it was like when it was good. I'd experienced really good times at Fulham, as a player. And then when I came back in, like, getting to the Europa League final under Roy was incredible. And also, it was success on the pitch. But I remember at that time when Roy was manager, I was doing some commentaries here and there as well. I was at a game and Henry Winter came up to me, who'd been in the week before at Motspur Park at the training ground. And he saw me and made like a beeline for me and just, I've got to tell you, he said, your place is the best. He said, it's like, and it was quite tiny, the canteen, and it was almost chaotic because it's all the first team are up there, then the office staff are over, and it's people waiting for seats, and it could be a little bit chaotic, but it was brilliant. It was a real good atmosphere. And I say Henry Winters sort of seeked me out to come and find me to say how good he felt it was and how brilliant. So that was Fulham. That's what I expect people to say about Fulham. And then I was there doing the under-21s and seeing it, and it had just become a horrible place. And it was like a big black cloud over Motspur Park. It become horrible, and there was things going on that I wasn't going to put up with, basically. And I told a few people, senior positions, that I was going to leave. I'd had enough, and I couldn't sit there and watch that happening to my club. Bottom line, and then obviously the change was made. Now, I wasn't, I say, I mean, it was, probably quite obvious I was like the next in line or whatever, the only person there potentially. I mean, they could have given it to Peter Grant saying that as well, who'd had experience, because Pete ended up staying on when McGat went. But if a change hadn't to be made, like I said, it didn't necessarily have to be given to me, but if a change wasn't made, I was going to go, because I wasn't going to sit there and watch that happening to my club, basically. And it took the first 7 games, obviously, without a win and just 1 point, and then the change was made, and they decided to give it to me on a caretaker basis. And I think it probably was the right call to give it to me, because I knew the club, and I knew the people at the club and how much they were all hurting and suffering and stuff like that. So yeah, that was quite then easy to change that bit around and suddenly turn the lights back on, if you like, and make it a place where people wanted to go every day and work, and it wasn't like that at all. People were dreading going in, be it players, staff, the commercial guys or whatever. People just didn't want to go in because of the atmosphere and how it was. And that's no good for anyone, So obviously I knew straight away I had to address that and change that, which I did.
I think that there was a great big. You could tell almost not instantly. Obviously, we know that there was that 7-game period when you first sort of came in and stuff like that. But you could tell that there was a mentality switch that happened when you come in, and it was almost like people were happy to be going there again. As from a fan's point of view, before you come in, you were questioning yourself, like, why am I doing this? Because all I'm doing is setting myself up to ruin the rest of my week by going to watch the football. And
I mean, I was
Felix
going.
Magath, I've heard
I
him.
was going. Yeah, I was going to the first team games, and the fans were singing like, "We want our Fulham back," because they knew the club had gone. It wasn't their club anymore. It wasn't
Yeah.
proper Fulham. And so that was obvious that needed to be addressed, and so that was my remit. Give the fans their Fulham back, and during my tenure, then fans were singing, "We've got our Fulham back." So I look at it as a sort of very sort of proud time, because that was my remit. It was give you guys the club back, get it back to where it should be, what it always has been, or mostly was, and something you're proud of, something you look forward to going to. And even when you weren't sure you were going to win, you loved going. It was your club, and but like the soul and the identity had been lost, and it was just. I mean, also the first game of that season, I don't remember, Ipswich away. It was like, I think it was 10 club debuts and 9 league debuts. I think it was only Scotty Parker who'd played in the Championship and for Fulham, and then Ross was making his club debut but had played in the Championship. The other 9 were either kids or foreign boys come in who hadn't played for Fulham and hadn't played in the Championship. 9. That's like ridiculous. It's like, I mean, the squad was nowhere like fit for purpose, And then when I took over, we like I used to watch the training. There'd be Amber, Brian Ruiz, and Hugo Rodallega just training on their own. 3 of them playing head tennis on the side of the pitch. They weren't allowed to train with a group. So I mean, first thing I did was just I phoned Brian up and said, "Listen, you've been treated really badly. I can only apologise, but do you want to come back in and be part of this?" He said, "I just want to play football." And so I got them boys straight back in, and they obviously played a big part then in making sure we stayed up. I mean, I don't know, one point from 21 at the start of the season. I don't think anyone stayed up with that before. I don't know, but not that I can remember. And so it was, it was odds against that we were going to be able to stay up with a broken group of players and a bit of a dysfunctional squad. But we managed to do it. It wasn't always easy, and it wasn't always necessarily the football I would have liked, but we found a way to do it.
I think when I think of that season, we took people often talk about transitional periods in football clubs, and when you go for, and you obviously said it yourself that away the opening game at Ipswich away. I I remember vividly being at that game, and just being like none of us really knew what we were facing for the season. Like we didn't really know, in terms of the squad that you had available to you. We know that there was some real quality there, but there was a lot of older heads in the team, and you look at some of the younger players coming through that. Again, we had some real quality there, but they were young and they were inexperienced, and we didn't really know. And yes, it was frustrating that start to the season, but you know, almost weirdly by the end of it, it was almost there was some enjoyable moments because you sort of sit back and you go, we you have to have your head way up in the clouds to think that that squad was probably going to get promoted again because I think it wasn't there to do that. I think really what it was doing was trying to fix the damage that had been done before it and trying to sort of you know restore and prepare for what came the season after and the season after that.
Well, this
And
is
so I
part of
think
my, I mean,
you had a
my sort of one of the problems I had was I sort of misread the fan base a little bit because I thought Fulham fans from back when I was playing, which some of the times we were just talking about. But you got to remember, Fulham had 13 years in the Premier League since then, and so a lot of the new generation of Fulham fans only knew sort of Premier League football, and that's what they expected. And so I think I sort of misjudged. My one of my mistakes really misjudging that a little bit, and maybe I should have played that a bit differently because then my sort of second. I was a second or start my first full season. I'm like, we didn't have the defenders that we needed and wanted, and a holding midfield player crying out. But I knew we could score goals. Ross and Musa were going to score goals. So I just thought, like, the Fulham fans from old. I'm thinking, well, we haven't got the right balance. I knew that, but it's going to be entertaining. We're going to score goals. We'll take some hits along the way, but then hopefully, if we can build on that, and then I can get in the right defenders. And I was promised a holding midfield player that never materialised, and then obviously the one I wanted came just after I left, which is typical. That's sod's law, isn't it? But there we go.
yeah. Well, I think the next season, obviously, I know that it was you only sort of lasted until the game after Birmingham away or the Birmingham loss that you were there till. But there had been a real transition. You could completely tell that when you left the club as manager, when you joined the club as manager, they're different sides of a coin in terms of the healthiness of the whole environment had definitely completely changed. You could definitely tell that as a fan, it was less toxic, and I think that was the real problem when you first came in. There was you could tell from the stands that everyone who's on the pitch is in a really toxic place, and from the crowd it felt that way, and obviously that's why there was often chanting, we want our Fulham back there. One of the funny things for me, I do genuinely remember Fulham before we were spending loads and loads of money in the Premier League and getting there. So I wasn't expecting much that season. I was happy to, a couple of years in the Championship doesn't bother me. I've seen this in free fall and it didn't really. And I know many people that are the same. I know maybe for slightly younger fans who'd only ever known Fulham in the Premier League, it probably wasn't the case. But you know, the heartbreak of being relegated away when we lost to Stoke, that hurt. That really really hurt. But it didn't last very long. For me, I one of my I had an auntie who used to take me to football when I was a kid. Who she loved Fulham. She literally my whole family are massive Fulham fans because of her passion for the club. Right, I probably do this because of people like her. She would very quickly remind us like if you think getting promoted, getting relegated from the Premier League's a big problem, you should try like having to like sell your possessions to give money to the club so they don't go out of business, giving up your summers to you know paint railings and pull up weeds because whatever anyone thinks the club being a bad place is, what that was then is not rock bottom. And
Nothing
we're
like
lucky
before.
that
Exactly. Yeah.
the club is complete. Yeah, we're lucky now that the club has completely sort of turned that around. You look at Fulham now, you know, I'd like to think we're back in a position where we're healthily in a Premier League team. The way that the club's being run financially is great. Like physically, commercially, the way the club is being run is great. Yes, there's some irks with certain things that the club do, and we all have problems with. But you know what? You're never going to make everyone happy all the time. There are things that annoy me, but you know, when you think of the club now, and you can do that as yourself, as someone who sort of, I know you watch the club and you sort of follow the club as it is. When you think about it, the seasons that came after you were put in place because of the seasons that you had when you were there as a player and as a manager. So it's sort of, there should be definite pride in your behalf, especially because when you were a manager, you had so much of the brunt put on you that because you were the face of it, that you should be proud of the job that you did. Personally, for me saying that to you, I don't know how you necessarily feel personally about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got, I mean, like I say, my biggest thing was the fans singing "We want our Fulham back." Then when I was manager, they were singing "We've got our Fulham back." So that meant everything to me, and so yeah. Listen, there was stuff going on, and obviously it was new ownership as well, and there were things with that people getting to know each other type and find the best way of working and stuff like that. So I was it was a difficult time, in lots of ways, in many, many ways. And, but yeah, listen, I look at it and I'm quite pleased with the job that I did. Like I say, I mean, I'm not sure how many teams have ever stayed up in the Championship after only getting 1 point from 21. I don't know. Maybe there has been, but I can't think of too many in recent years. Certainly. So just staying up, like I say, it could have been a very different story if we had got relegated to League One then, and not stayed in the Championship. So it could have been a lot worse, I think, certainly. So no, I'm quite happy with it, with the job I did. Like I say, I was a young manager and I made plenty of mistakes for sure. Didn't always get the players that I'd wanted or wished for or been promised. Didn't always quite materialise. But then, also signed Tom Cairney, bought in Tim Ream, players like that. So, we sort of did all right and we're building for the future. And like I said, when I got sacked, we were leading scorers in the Championship. So, people couldn't say it wasn't entertaining. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely entertaining. It was not bad on your mental health, but it's definitely
Well, I
entertaining
mean,
to
my last
watch.
couple
But
of games, I mean,
that is what it is.
I beat Reading 4-2 at home, and then we beat Bristol City 4-1 away. And I think we lost to Burnley 3-1, who ended up, I think they won it that year. And then we got beat at home, got smashed 5-2 by Birmingham. So, like I say, we're winning games, big wins, but then we could lose them as well. So it was like that. It was very much a work in progress. And like I say, I knew what I wanted. We needed a couple more defenders and a holding midfield player. That's what we were crying out for. And like I say, Kev McDonald comes in just after I go, which is typical because we were linked for him. We were trying to get him in. Couldn't get it over the line in time. And like I say, he was a player who would have at that time. Well, he obviously did come in and do very well for the club just after me. So yeah, there we go. It's what might have been.
I think that we can brief before we move on and do your top threes. Obviously, you did just mention it. Obviously, you were in charge of the club when Tom Kenny come on and joined the club. He's just obviously signed a new deal to stay on for another year. He's now reached sort of 10 years as a player at the club. That's a massive thing. I think the last person to play for Fulham for 10 years was actually Simon Morgan, which is well, Tim Ream is obviously there too. But you look at that, it's a hell of an achievement for someone like him to be at a football club that has gone through so many different periods in his time of being there to do 10 years. What are your sort of general thoughts on that? Because I know that he came in when you were in charge.
Yeah, I mean, he was a brilliant player, Tom. And I remember speaking to him in training when we signed. He'd not been there that long, and I'm like, mate, you are a Premier League player. You've got Premier League qualities. You're a Premier League player. Just got to impose yourself a little bit more in games and have that little bit more belief in yourself. And I mean, he's a really good guy as well. He's a great lad and a tremendous football player. And just, I mean, he's done so well for the club, and he's obviously absolutely revered by the fans, and rightly so. He deserves it because he's not just a top player; he's a top guy as well. So I'm delighted for him, and I was really pleased. Obviously, there were links with possibly a lot more money, other places or whatever, but I'm glad he stayed the extra year at Fulham.
I think it's a big thing for someone like him to potentially even end his career at Fulham. Who knows what's happening at the end of next season? Because you know, I think it's really good, especially for younger football fans, because we don't see it that much anymore. To know what sort of loyal, like true loyalty like that is for footballers, because I say you don't really see it anymore. But obviously, when you would have been part of that sort of that transitional period as a player in your career, that you went from when you were playing, where players tended to stay wherever they were for almost forever, unless magic money came in or clubs completely went to pot. So it is mad now that to think that how easily players move on and they try to find pastures new, that have someone like him come in, especially a player of his quality. Um, Considering the ups and downs we've had, is pretty amazing. Let's move on to the second part of this show, which is always our top threes. Now these moments, if anyone knows, this is all personal to you, so they don't have to necessarily be the biggest moments. It's more just about your feelings towards them, and obviously going through it. The first sort of top threes that we go to is your top three favorite goals. I know there's not necessarily loads to choose from being while you're at Fulham. I think you scored 13 goals. You scored while playing for Fulham. But do you have any three that sort of stick out or that you remember?
Um, yeah, I do. I mean, that first season I scored 11 in my first season. So from that, probably I think we beat, like we were talking about, like being able to scrap and fight, and we beat Stoke away 1-0. I think it was on a Tuesday night. And you really tell the mettle of a team if they can win at Stoke on a wet and windy Tuesday night or something. And we went and won 1-0 at Stoke. And I remember it was a far post header. I had it back across, and it was over the line. And Harry Bales tried to nick it. He tried to claim it, but it was way over the line, and I got given the goal, rightly so. But yeah, Bazza tried to rob it off me. I remember that, and I was remember running back to the halfway line, going, "No chance, mate. You're not having that one." But he did try and nick it. So yeah, Stoke in a 1-0 away win. Um, I always remember I scored left foot at the Hammersmith end against Wigan. And that was the day Michael Jackson was at the club, and he came into the changing rooms afterwards. And we met Michael Jackson. Yeah, so that was a goal I always remember. Left foot as well. I didn't score many in my left foot. Up in the top corner at the Hammersmith end. So that one, and the one I was at the cottage for the last game of the season. I did the radio for Fulham City, and I went over to Riverside afterwards and chatting to different groups of fans. It was lovely. It was really, really nice. And pretty much every different group, the goal that they all have a go at me for was Millwall away. We beat Millwall away 1-0. And they're all like, "Oh God, we had to get to the station after that winning." So it's quite a late goal. I remember Stevie A second phase from a a free kick, I think it was, and Stevie Hayward, who had brilliant delivery, as we all know, put in a great cross. And it was my mate in goal, Tony Roberts, was on loan at Millwall. And I see him coming out thinking he's going to punch my head off here. So I shut my eyes, headed it in the corner, and yeah, we won 1-0. But Fulham fans all remember me for that because they're like, you flipping killed us. What were you thinking? We had to get to the station at Millwall after having just beaten them 1-0 away from home. So, yeah, that's probably my top goal, the one that gets talked about the most anyway, I think.
I think I remember that goal because I was at that game. It was like one of the
Did you get
first
to the
years of
station
a
all right?
Liverpool. Yeah, it's fine. When you like even then at Millwall, when you used to leave grounds, you used to very much separate away fans and home fans down little tunnels and the way through. For me, I do remember that because I almost didn't believe you'd scored. It was one of those ones like when the goal had gone in, I wasn't really concentrating who had scored it. I was concentrating more that we had scored. And then I remember having a very brief discussion with my aunt, which was like she was telling me that you were the one who put it in. But yeah, no, for me, I do definitely remember that Millwall goal for sure. We'll move on to the next top three. It's actually the top three favorite Fulham games. So these aren't necessarily ones that you scored in or or whatever. But are there three games in particular that really stand out for you while playing or while managing that sort of really stick to what it is to you and your sort of relationship with Fulham?
I think playing, we spoke about that Villa game. Villa in the Cup was just incredible. That was like that. Yeah, that was a real statement sort of game. We were like third tier. We beat the Premier League leaders quite comfortably, really. So that was, yeah, that was a special moment, a special game. Blackburn away under Tigana as well was because it was all going on. Suey had said like, yeah, Fulham might be top, but Blackburn are the best team. And we played them. It was an evening game, wasn't it? And I remember Rufus we went 1-0 down early. I think Matt Jansen scored for them. Then Ruthless gets sent off. So it's all against us. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously we went on and won that game, and that effectively. I mean, we were going to win the championship anyway that year because we were the better team, and we were in front, and it was going to be all right. But the fact we actually went and beat them on their own turf after Suey had come out and said that, and the way the game went as well, with going a man down, goal down, a man down. I can remember the funniest moment I remember in that game was so Rufus got sent off. So we had to, I can't remember who then got subbed off, but we had to bring Alan Nilsson on. We needed another defender on. And it was just at the time when you used to be able to wear your wedding ring and tape it up, but they'd changed the rules. You couldn't wear any rings now. So Al still had his ring taped up, and the fourth official went, no, you can't go on with your ring. So he couldn't get his ring off. He's literally trying to almost bite his finger off, I think, just so he was that desperate to get onto the pitch. I remember just standing laughing at him on the sideline, and so that was a real special game, and in effect the one where we won the league. Then I think it was we went to Huddersfield, I think, didn't we, on the Saturday to effectively or officially win it, but. That was a really big game and a massive moment, and it sent a huge sort of statement out. So there were so many good times. I mean, I remember then as manager, like probably Birmingham away, like the first win, getting the, because that season, like I say, we hadn't won, hadn't won in like 8 games, or I took over after 7. And we obviously lost to Blackburn my first game, and then getting that first win of the season, Birmingham away, and going over, sort of clapping the fans at the end of that was a special moment, I think. Yeah. So probably those 3 for moments, and then the games, like I say, we actually won the promotions in and things like that were all incredible. There were so many good moments, but if I had to pick 3, I'll go for them 3.
I think they're a great set of 3. I think that the Villa game, I say we've already spoke about it. It was just one of those really. cementing moments as a kid. When you choose to support a football team, and it's not necessarily the most glamorous one, because it's the one sort of you fall in love with, games like that sort of justify everything you've been through, all the torment that you take as a fan from people that support big clubs. They completely justify it, and it was amazing. Like the Blackburn game to me is so funny because obviously it was a school night, so I couldn't go. And I'd been to pretty much all of the weekend away games that season, and I had permission from my mum to go down to my aunt's house, who lived like just at the bottom of the road from where we lived, because she had Sky and we could watch it. And it was me, my aunt, and my cousin were watching it. And we were all obviously season ticket holders, and we were all at Huddersfield away the week after, and we were all sort of waiting for it. And my aunt, who had this ability that there was no, there was, she literally, there was no bones about it. She had a problem with you, she'd say it. She hated Graham Souness. Like, she absolutely despised him, especially after the comments he made about about them being the better team and all of that. So she was so overjoyed. But one of my favourite moment about that is when Sean Davis obviously scores the winner. We're going nuts in my auntie's living room, like really nuts. And then there was like a brief moment of clarity where we're looking at the screen, obviously they're just showing Sean dancing, and then they cut to the crowd, um, and you could see my uncle, who was at the game, sort of on his asthma pump because he was having an asthma attack because he'd obviously celebrated it so hard. Yeah, it was such a mad moment. Obviously, then you talk about that Birmingham away game where we get those first points as you being a manager. I was at that game too, and it was, it for me, I think that was when there was the first sort of inkling that all of the problems that we'd had, and us all moaning about, losing the football club and not feeling like we as fans were attached, and the cogs of the what should make it a successful club weren't necessarily working. That sort of started to change. So I think they're three very good choices when you look at that. The last set of top threes I always ask anyone who sort of play for the club is top three moments. So these don't necessarily have to be games while playing for the football club, but there's like three moments that sort of really cement what the football club means to you. Because when we think about people, especially that aren't necessarily born into being a Fulham fan or Fulham player, you came and joined the club at a good time. But yeah, they're sort of three moments that you remember that sort of really cement why the club means so much to you, sort of when you look back at it.
Well, I think going back to that Blackburn game, a special moment for me in that game was seeing Tigana running down the touch. And Tigana, who just stood there with his toothpick picking, showing no animation whatsoever. Generally, he was like the coolest man in the world. Even he, I think, because of the build up to the game and how the game had actually gone, him running down the touchline, well, I was like, I was pissing myself laughing I'm on the pitch still. I'm giggling my head off because I thought I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and it was that. So that was just like incredible. Other moments, again, I had so many. I mean, going back again to my very first game, that after the Hamburg game and the fact we all went out and we're mixing with the fans, that's sort of like, because the Hamburg game as well, I didn't really go into that. Like, it was Kevin going back there, he was at the training ground, so he was hero worshipped. And we sort of got together as players. Again, I literally just signed, but I knew Cookie and stuff, and like Moore's a senior pro. And we were like talking to ourselves, basically, like, this is going to be a tough game today, and we could get our asses felt here because they're a really good side. So we were like really dogged, didn't play particularly nice football at all. We were quite physical with them, and they were moaning a little bit. And I could see Kevin was getting a bit agitated because he'd gone back for this hero's reception, and suddenly his team are not being very nice, to be honest, But we were like, it was pre-season. We're setting our stall up. We want to win. And we ended up, I think it was 2-0 we won. Dirk Lehman played for us up front. He was on trial as well, Dirk, who was hilarious. And so we sort of like, that sort of set our stall out as a group. And I say I'd have been in one day, I think, and flew straight off to Hamburg. So, because I knew Cookie, and we sort of, like I say, we got together, had a chat, and say we're going to be hard to beat here. We're going to be horrible because if we go too open and expansive, they'll tear us apart. And so straight away, then I thought I could tell after that game we got something special. Then the team spirit, we had a night out in the Reaper bar, and then our Fulham tracksuits. It was like I thought we're going to be all right here. So that was like a sort of special moment, if you like, just realizing we've got something special, we've got something good going on. For a third special moment, I don't know. It's again really, really difficult. I don't know because there were like just so many, there's so many special good moments that. Man, I'm struggling for third one. Really, that's something that sort of stands out from the others. I mean, that's there are games like I say. I mean, all the cup games, that Tottenham game that you spoke about earlier. I mean, Jeff just raggy-dolled Sol Campbell. I remember Sol was getting all this great press at the time, and rightly so because he was a phenomenal player. But Jeff just tortured him that night. I remember, and like he didn't give him a moment's peace, and he was a proper handful. So things like that were some just so too many brilliant times. Ash, really.
That's fine. I completely understand. You were at the club as a player during a very successful time, and I can understand why that would be exceptionally difficult to pick hard moments like that. Kit, I appreciate your time, mate. I really it's good, always lovely to come and chat to ex-players and ex-managers of the club because it's always nice to know that as a football club we grow on people who don't necessarily have a connection to the club when they join, but I know from listening to you speak after leaving the club how much the club means to you. You've described it while talking to me now as your club and stuff like that, which is always nice to hear when you talk to people that have played for your football club that they've left and that they've loved it just as much as we do as fans, because obviously it's important for that. There's one last thing I'd like to do on FFC&ME. We have this thing called the FFC&ME Hall of Fame, where we get people who come on to nominate one person who played for the club, works for the club. For you it would be obviously you know players that you played alongside, or maybe managers that for you really cement what it is to be Fulham. That connection and the love, and just the pure dedication of what it is. Can you put somebody in our Hall of Fame for us, please?
For me, is Maunders in there? Mark Maunders been put in there yet by anyone?
Mark's in there about 10 times. Yeah, he's
Yeah, I thought he might
a
be. All
very
right, well,
popular
he
man, Mark.
can do one then. I'm not going to say him there. Jackie Stockley. Have you got Jackie in there?
I haven't. No, we haven't got Jackie.
No, so
in there.
Jackie was like manager's PA. So when I signed, she was Kevin's PA. And then obviously, as time went on, she was Cookie's PA, then my PA. And yeah, she's brilliant. So I remember with Jack when my first season, it was around Christmas time, we went away for a game and played Crewe away. And she put us in this hotel. It was literally 40 towers. It was like, so I remember they sold postcards in the reception. So I sent her a postcard like free the Crew 7, and we got the boys. There were 7 of us there having a cup of tea. So we all signed this postcard and sent it back to Jackie at the training ground. And she's brilliant, Jack. And like I say, she's been at Fulham forever. Since she was there before I joined, and she's still there now. And she's a great lady and sort of Fulham through and through. One of those people that gets the club and sort of makes it tick in the background. And she's brilliant.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kat. I really appreciate your time. As I say, you're going to be the first episode of the new series of FFC&Me. Anyone who is watching, tell us your favourite Kit moment, playing for the club, managing the club. It's always great to sort of hear those things and to share it that way. We have got some more of these hopefully planned in the next couple of weeks. We only did one of these last season, unfortunately. We sort of stopped to concentrate more on the other side of the channel. But we are hoping to get more of these in, and we get people like yourself, Kit, to come on and talk to us about their time at Fulham. It's always really, really great because there is a genuine love between you and the club, and there's a genuine love between the club and you. Everyone who knows that this interview is going to happen that I've spoken to, all really excited it was going to happen because they really appreciate not just your time as a player and as a manager, but the work that was put in at the club at the time. So thank you very much for that, and thank you very much for giving us your time tonight.
Pleasure, Ash. Thanks very much. Cheers.